Okay, so we are welcome to today's class, and like I said, we'll be going into classes and objects today. And if you observed, since we started our programming and all that, we've always been writing inside this particular class name program. And I explained 2 classes back the concept of namespace, the concept of class. And I gave an illustration that a namespace is like the grandmother, a class is like the mother. Then inside that class, there are quite number um, of attributes, quite number of attributes. And the attributes, inside the attributes now, we have what we call fields, we have what we call properties, and we have what we call methods. Now, let me give a simple scenario. Why do we need class? Why do we use class? Now, class is just a blueprint to an object. It's just a blueprint. Like, how should an object look like? Take, for example, the example we'll be considering in this class. Now, imagine a class to be like a framework that needs to be built, then every other object can conform to. Now, human beings can be likened to a class. Now, a typical human being should have 2 eyes, should have 2 ears, should have 1 nose, should have 1 mouth, and 2 hands, and so on. So now, an human being is like a blueprint now. Now, myself, I'm Abayomi. Now, I'm an object, but human being as it is a blueprint for me. Definitely, I must have that attribute. Now, as Abayomi now, I may now have some little, maybe the way I talk, but the fact remains that there are some basic things I still do as human beings. So maybe they may be different in the way I talk, but I talk. They may be different in the way I eat, but I eat. So class is just a blueprint. So when you have a blueprint like that, you can have as many objects as you want to have. And this provide platform for temporary storage of data. Now that means when you have a blueprint, you can have quite number of objects, and those objects can relate with one another. So with that basic understanding of class understood, now what are the attributes inside a class? So I said there are fields, there are properties, and there are methods. So now in this class, I created a class. Now, we've been using a particular class since we started. We've been using this class called program, and we'll be using this particular method called static void main. Then that's where we put all our programs. Now, it's that way because according to the way console app was written, it has been written to just run this, create an instance of this class, run it, and all the programs should be inside this particular method. So now when you write other technology, maybe desktop application, web application, and all that, you are at liberty to create your own class, create your own object based on the problem at hand. So now for this class, I just created a class for myself. So now this is a class. Can we all see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so now I created a class called Iman. So you can give your class any name based on based on what is actually doing. So you are at liberty to give it that name. So now I created a class, I give it the name Iman. Now, if you can see these 3, we call it fields. They are fields. Now you can see now this is a data type. This int, this int also. We all know that those are data types. Now later on I will explain the significance of this private and public and some other ones, and what they do, where can I use private, where can I use public. So but when you have things like this, they are called feeds. Now that means, okay, I'm saying as human being, you should have a name, you should have eye number, the number of eyes, you should have the number of nose. Then properties. Now property is different from feed in that in case you want to do some manipulations while your field is being supplied, you can make use of property. What do I mean? If you look at this property now, the way I declared it is different from the way I declare field. Now, this is now, you have the data type to be string, and the name of the property is name. Then there's this, we call this one assessor and setter. Call it assessor. Now, this is a getter now. Now, I wrote this now, this is public and the name is name. Whenever anybody wants to get this particular property, come and do what is inside of here. Whenever anybody wants to set a value for this particular property, come and do what is here. So now if you are getting, now you want to collect the value now, I'm asking you to return name. This is a different variable entirely. Now, why will I do such? It's more like a repetition. If why don't I just declare it once? Now, take for example, a way to secure your variable. Maybe this name, I want it to be very secure. Or maybe I want to do some manipulations. Maybe I want to do some manipulations before, maybe as you are trying to get it, maybe I want to maybe say, okay, name, then I want to add plus, let me say name of student. So anytime you are getting name, I want to carry out this manipulation. So I can do that inside property. But assuming it's just a field like this, if you are getting it, if you are setting it, there's limits to the manipulations I can do. And if you are setting it also, so what this does is the value you are bringing in, it's storing it inside the private variable. So that's a property. And this particular thing that was done, you can actually do it. I mean, this property here, now there's an advanced way of doing it. You can do it this way. You can see the comment here. If I remove this, I can just comment this out. So now, still the same thing. Set, when you are trying to get this, return this. When you're trying to set this, do this. So still the same thing, but this is much more explanatory and clearer than this. So this is an advanced way of writing it. So let me leave it the way it is. Now, they're talking about methods now. Now, this is a method. This is a method. Now, and method just more like behavior. Like I want it to, like those things it does. Like you have some actions in it. You know, we discussed methods 2 classes back. And we say methods like just if you're just looking for a way to just segment your code, avoid repetition and all that. So this is a function. This is a method now. And this particular method does not return anything. That's why you have void here. And the name of this method is it. Then this bracket, the parenthesis, has nothing inside because that means anytime we are making use of this method, we don't need to supply any value. So what is this method doing? Okay, console.writeLine, are you hungry? So that's what that method is doing. Then I have another method here also. Then say console the right line. This method, the name is say name. That means I want this method to just tell the person, okay, this is the name of this particular person, and I expect it to spell it out. So now it's just print out console.writeLine the name of the person. So let me use. I can decide to use the small letter one or use the big capital letter one. They are still going to collect the same thing. I guess there's a mistake there. Okay, come in. Okay. So now, any questions so far before I continue? I will want to move into constructor. Any questions so far? Okay, does it mean we all understand so far? Are we together?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. So now, so okay, let me just explain it once and for all. Now, I said object is just class is just a blueprint for objects. It's just a blueprint for objects. Now, how do we make use of class? So I've created a class now. How can I make use of it? So now that's what we'll be looking at next. How do we make use of the class? Now I want us to take notes, just like I said the other time. Um, when you have a class, you can create as many objects, and those objects, they don't clash with one another at all. So now let's come and see the implementation of the object now, of the class now. So now I just created, what I did was I came to my solution, I right clicked, and you can see add, then I created a new class and I started writing my class. So now if you take note, inside the program, that's where the main execution is. Now if you look at the namespace here, the namespace is classes and object oops. And if you look at the iman, the class iman I created now is inside the same namespace. So now you can begin to connect the explanation I gave, that the namespace is just like a grandmother, then you have mothers inside. So those mothers are classes. So I just created another file. I can decide to copy all of these and come and paste it inside the same namespace. It will still be visible to it, but not just to avoid long lines of code. So I can decide to create as many files, and that's why many times you see people create files and there are so many files and all that. So now, how do we make use of this class? We've created a blueprint for human being, a typical human being. So now, there's what we call instancing or creating objects. It's still the same thing. When you create an object or you create an instance of a class, that means you are creating a sample. You are creating the real object itself. Just like we say, okay, is an human. Who is an human? The person must have a definition. What is his person's name? Okay. Okay, Abayami is an human. Timilenyi is an human. Ayodele is an human, and so on. So now, at that point, you are being definite. But when I just say human, no, I'm not referring to anybody. So now, how do we create an object? If you can see this line, that's line 12. You can see human person 1 equals new human. So now, at this point now, I've created an object, I've created an instance, and the name is person 1. That's the name of that object. I can decide to create another object again. Now, for every object you create, they have their own unique and different properties based on the class. If you can see now, this is how you create objects. This is how you create objects. New, the name of the object, then in brackets, then that's just the format. So what you have here is the name of the object, and it's through the name of the object you can reach out to those properties, those attributes, those fields, those methods inside that particular class. So if you look at the line that follows now, you can see person1 dot name, because I've created an object called person1. So I can now reach out to the name. Okay, person1 dot name. If you can remember, we have a property here called name. So I could reach out to it and say person1 dot name equals Kolapo. So now I'm storing Kolapo inside person1 dot name. So now person1 dot name is an instance of that class. So now what it's going to do is that when it comes here, it first creates an instance of this class. It first creates an instance of that class, and when it comes here, um, what am I doing at that point? I'm setting a value. So I'm setting a value. That means it's coming here to perform this operation. So now it's going to say, okay, name equals value. That means the value I'm bringing will be stored inside the field course name. So it will store it inside here. So it will be identified as that. So now in the next line, I cannot say console.writeLine. Okay, zero up. Okay, then I want to say print person's name. Then we're going to print the person. We print Kolapo as Kolapo has so number of eyes. So due to the fact that it's an human. So now, have I defined what the eye number is? No, I've not defined it. So now, the eye number, I can decide to here define, okay, person one, I cannot say person one dot eye number. Like, okay, Kolapo, maybe Kolapo is an alien, give it 3 eyes. So Kolapo may be different from every other human being, give it 3 eyes. So what it's going to do is, okay, that person one dot name, that's Kolapo, has 3 eyes. So now, and I want Kolapo to eat. I say person one dot eat. I'm calling that particular method. I'm calling that particular method in that class. So now you can see that by just creating an instance of that class, I have access to all the attributes of that class. So now let's move on. I can decide to create another object. I create another object and call it human person 2. Now, when I'm creating another object, if you can see something, the second object I created, I put something inside parentheses. Why? Now, let me quickly explain. There's what we call constructor. There's what we call constructor. And what is constructor? Constructor is a method that is run automatically immediately as you create an instance of that class. Now, if you can see, there's an object, there's a method here, public human. So now what does public human does? Okay, give its eye number to be 2, nose to be 1. Then I have another one, public human. We can remember last week I explained about method overriding. That means you can have a particular method name, but have different formats. So now you can see here now, in this case now, I created another method, but in this case, this one will be collecting a string. So the person can decide to make use of this one or this one. So now, while you are creating an instance of the human, you can decide to make use of this. You can decide to make use of this, whichever one. So if you can see in our implementation, for this one, I made use of the first one. So that means it's going to tell it's going to assign the person's eye number. So I don't need to do this. So automatically assign it there. Then for this one now, it's not going to assign it. So that means I should assign it here. So I'll just do person 2 dot eye number equals to, then person 2 dot nose equals 1. So that's that. So now I don't know. I would like to welcome question at this point. I know I've said a lot. So let me hear from us. Do we understand all that I've explained? So questions. Mr. Ayodele, Ms. Gunes, Mr. Timilei, any question?
Oh, I don't have any questions for now.
Okay, that means you understand, right?
And to some extent I do, but I'll go through the video again later for more understanding.
Okay. Mr. Timilei, any question?
Yes, please, is there any difference between a constructor and method? As they somehow look alike.
Yes. A constructor, for methods now, take for example, it is a method. I had to call it. Now, but for constructor now, as soon as pardon me, the section will end in 10 minutes time. So let's try to rejoin when it's done. Now, for constructor, as soon as you create this object, or you create this instance, the constructor gets run immediately. it gets run immediately. Now let's do something. Let me just while you create the constructor, let it write something out and say console dot write line. And just say you are welcome, human being. You are welcome, human being. Okay, so now normally for you to use a method, you have to call it. You have to call it just like it. You have to call it here before it will be able to print out it. But when you are talking about constructor now, as soon as you create the object, the constructor gets called immediately. That means at this point, okay, let me comment all this out for now. Let me comment all this out for now. And as it is presently now, nothing is expected to be printed out in the real sense. Nothing is expected to be printed out. But we are only creating an object. We've only created an object. Now, new Iman, and this is it here now. We created an object of this. What it does is it will come and run this object first. This to the file you are creating it will run this first. So now let's run this. If I don't have any bug, okay, let's run it. So it may take a few minutes to get. Okay, there's a message in the chat. Let me check that. There's a message in the chat. Okay. I'm waiting for it to compile. So okay, Mr. Ade said, I don't understand line 24. I mean 21. Okay, you said the person has two eyes. Why is it indicating one eye in line 21? Okay, look at that later. So let me quickly answer Mr. Timile's question. Let me quickly answer that. Now, if you look at what we have here, what we've just done is we've fully created an instance. We've not asked it to print anything. We've not called any method. But now, let me share what is on our screen, on our output with you now. Automatically, it's saying you are welcome, human being. I've not asked it to do anything, but it's doing that because I've declared because I've created an object, and the object automatically, as soon as you are creating the object, it calls the constructor. And this is the constructor that matches with the object I created. So now, assuming I decided to use another means to create the constructor, maybe in this time I put a particular name inside this parenthesis here now. Inside the parenthesis, when I decide to put the name inside this parenthesis, then that means it's going to come and follow this pattern. Then in this case now, it's not going to print anything. So that's the difference between an ordinary method and a constructor. So a constructor gets called automatically when you create that, when you create an object from the class, while a method needs to be called in the course of your program. So constructor is automatic, every other method are manual. I think that's the best explanation. So back to the question from Mr. Ayodele. So said line 21, line 20. Okay, let me read the chat very well. Said I mean 21, you said the person has two eyes. Why is it indicating one eye in line 21? Okay. I don't seem to understand. Can you clarify? Can you clarify? I don't seem to understand the question. So now, let me uncomment this, and so this is just. I know I said a lot. I will not want to go further than this for this class. So I want us to ask questions so that we can address it and explain it. So, Mr. Adele, I'm not too clear with the question. Said, why will I did not get the question right? So you can help reconstruct the question. So for the rest of us, any question, please?
No question.
Okay, but Mr. Timere, do you understand constructor and method now?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Adele, you can help us reconstruct the question so that I can explain better. Okay. Okay, in line 19, you said the person has two eyes. Yes, but in line 19, I'm seeing one. This is for nose. This is for nose. Then let's look at the. Oh, I don't get it well. What we have here is line. What we have here, I'm declaring. Now I've created this particular object. Now I can decide to change anything inside the object. Using the object, I'll be able to reach out to the attribute. So this particular object, now this particular one does not contradict this. In short, their value will not even cannot even clash together. So I can decide to create another object and just say, okay, human, another human being, and call it person 3 and say new human. Then I decide to say, okay, this particular human being, that will be person 3 now. Then the I number now is 4. Then maybe person 3, the nose number is 3. Then I've created another object. So in this case now we have 3 objects. This one, this 2, and this is 3. So I can decide to use, they don't contradict one another. So we can see the effect of classes now. That means you've just created a blueprint that others can follow. So you can decide to improve on a class. So that's the things we'll be looking at later on next week. But what we've just learned today is how to create a class. So the attribute and the methods you create in your class. Oh, the session just ended. Okay, you have 1 minute. 1 minute, okay. So the attribute, okay. Okay, Saturday said, I think he's talking about the string form. Okay. The string formatting. Yes, this is just a way of printing. You know, when you have it this way, I just use, you can see here, this is a variable in the reasons. This is a variable carrying values. So I want person.name to occupy where I put 0. I want person.I number to occupy where I put 1. So when it's printing this, it will be printing the person's name. If it will be printing Kolapo will replace here. Then person.I number, which is 2 at the other end there, represent what we have here. So 1 here in the reason does not stand for 1. It's mapping 0 to what we have here, and it's mapping 1 to whatever we have here. So as we want to slot in 3 other variables, another variable, I will just use